Hello, my friends. This is Thad Riley and episode 228 of the Thadcast and number trace on YouTube. Number 3, we're right here in Brentwood, New Hampshire, and I'm fresh off an exhilarating 3 hours and 49 minute school board meeting last night. Whoo! I should have worn my Warrior shirt. I don't know if you can see that you can't see it on the podcast, but I have a Warrior shirt on right now. And maybe that would be more of an appropriate shirt to wear sometimes for school board or the Republican Party meetings or whatever it might be. You know, it seems to apply. And if I had anything I could put underneath Warrior right now that would encourage folks, it would say Warrior of Hope. I'm a warrior of hope. And I want to talk about hope a little bit today because it's something that we need so much of right now. And as a follower of Jesus, I don't know if there is I'm not saying it's the burden that we bear right now, but it's kind of the proclamation of Jesus to the world today is the hope, how much hope is in him. I go back in my head to several different scenarios in my life because once something happens and I'm faced with a situation, I start playing out what are the possible outcomes. Do you ever do this? And you think of the best possible outcome, you think of the worst possible outcome. And what I'm really thinking of is the wrong possible outcome because it seems like the way that I think it's going to go, it never really quite goes that way. I remember years ago during my divorce, I was at a point early on where I was just hoping to get to the point where we could agree that I would see the kids every other weekend. There wasn't a moment in my existence that I could even begin to fathom the idea that as a dad, with everything my ex had stacked up against me, that I would end up with sole custody of the children. I mean, that was the furthest thing that I ever dreamed would happen, and yet that's what the Lord did in that moment, and God had his hand in that in so many ways. And I get my kids all the time. In fact, my daughter just went back to college. She's going to work. She's got a boyfriend down there. She's got an apartment. The whole kit and caboodle, right? Anybody else say kit and caboodle? Nobody? Great. Just me, kit and caboodle. It means like a whole lot of stuff, like kind of coming together. Anyway, in a huge shock, we're not doing like vocabulary lessons off of strange phrasing today. We're talking about being a warrior of hope. And so when I went through the divorce, I remember reflecting back. It was like, there's no way I could have dreamed that this reality would end up as it did. That is reality. And then I would never even imagine in a million years I would end up getting married so soon afterwards. I mean, it just is what it is. To my best friend, to the first girl I'd ever kissed. 22 years we'd been broken up, and we got back together, and now we have a very happy marriage here in, beyond happy for me, she's awesome, here in Brentwood, New Hampshire. And do you all know where I live yet? I've said it like 6 times in the podcast, so maybe we'll dial that back just a little bit. But in a huge twist, I live in Brentwood, New Hampshire. So anyway, we never know the story that God is painting around us, really, until it's unfolding, right? Into these moments where, we can see his hand here, and we can see this happening here, and oh, look what he's doing over here. And sometimes things turn out, mind you, much worse than we ever thought that they would possibly turn out. And I get that. I'm with you 100%. Like, the results were like, what in the world happened in this moment in my life? This was the most horrible, evil, despicable, disgusting, horrible thing that could happen to anyone, and it happened to me. And there are many people who feel that way. You know, our hope and our tenacity for hope isn't built circumstantially, and it's not built upon the moment, if that makes sense. I guess that kind of makes sense, right? So when we look back at the scriptures, we can see story and story again where things didn't quite make sense, like Israel being oppressed by the Jews being oppressed by Egypt for 400 years. But they didn't realize that this moment of freedom and parting of the Red Sea and their escape and the destruction of that army that's coming to kill them by the hand of God and the waters, they didn't realize that this would be a story of hope for thousands of generations to come. Because here we are, we still talk about Moses and how cool it was when he parted the Red Sea. So we don't always know what's going on, even in our lifetimes, and how a story that is so tough and difficult may end up being, long after we're gone, the thing that creates a revival and a passionate love for God in our country today, in our world today. It can change everything. So we keep our hope in God because he is the one in charge and not us. Lamentations 3:23 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. And that's hard to do sometimes. I mean, that's where that little word faith comes in for you and I. And we have to ask ourselves right now, with the situation we're in our life, how are we doing with our faith? I'm a little bit of a roller coaster, to be honest with you. And it's not been my easiest jaunt in understanding everything that God is doing. And there have been days where I've kind of given up. I mean, I'm just being honest with you. Like, I've been like, well, today sucks. So I might as well just go eat a bowl of ice cream and not worry about my health and not send messages, encouraging messages to people, and not do this to reach out to somebody and, you know, not promote the podcast here or whatever, right? And get in these modes. I think the COVID-19 crisis has allowed us to slip into that a little bit more than maybe we should have. At least for me, that's been one of my struggles. But when I look at the life of Jesus and how, you know, he's out speaking to these people and they're following him all day and they're tired and hungry, and there's like 5,000 of them, and he ends up feeding them with like 5 fish and 7 like loaves of bread. I mean, that's it, you know, like enough for my family, not even maybe enough for my family. And it's a big family. We would need more. We'd need some sides with that, I would assume, right? But Jesus takes that and he provides food for 5,000 people. An incredible moment where everybody thought they knew how this story was going, and Jesus just said, no, it's not going that way. I've got something so off your radar right now that's about to happen, and it's good. It's good. It's going to provide. And I think we need to see God as our provider right now for everything that we need. And we need to have our hope in him, that he has a plan, that there are results coming that are going to blow our minds. We have a lot to be encouraged about. And then we step back and we trust in the Lord, and we don't have this anxiety about us, this fear about us, this tension about us, but we embrace all that God is doing in the moment that we're in, and let him do the heavy lifting. Let him carry all the burden for how all of this stuff in our lives right now is going to work out. So when you're a warrior of hope, that's what it looks like. This Oswald Chambers, I've referred to this several times, spiritual tenacity. Look up the devotional from Oswald Chambers on spiritual tenacity. And it is the unwavering belief that Jesus is your hero and he will never fail. And he won't. That's the good news for us today. So we don't know the ending. Heck, we don't even know the next part of the story. But God is writing this story, and we get to be in the room. And let's see what happens. Let's see what happens, my friends, because I think God is doing some pretty amazing things right now. And I think putting all of our hope and trust in him is kind of where it's at. So, well, that's it for this episode 228 of the Thadcast, here on the YouTube, here on the iTunes, the Spotify, the Stitcher, or whatever platform you listen to this thing on. And as always, hey, what's really good news for me is when you share this with a friend or share it on social media or leave a comment or feedback. Or reviews are always good, just to let folks know that we're out here doing this thing. And I hope this encouraged you today and encourages you in the future. And I hope that the Lord just encourages your soul right now, because we need that. Pray for that and ask God to come alongside you in these moments today. So that's it for this episode. And until next time, may you be blessed.